I hope you're doing good today. Well, this session will be pretty unusual because it's just more of a kind of a record session, or rather like an archive session, because this will literally be my first time using the wheel in any racing game. So yeah, could be interesting to see what happens. So let me handle some things first, and then we can get started. I think we're all ready to go. So first thing we're gonna do is so oh, what happened to the sound? Wait, I think my sound may have conked itself out. That's weird. Wait a second. Oh, and we're back. Wait a second. Okay, okay, yeah, okay, that's what you expected then. So yeah, anyways, so first I think, so you seen the previous BeamNG session, you probably would have realized that the most common car I've been using is a Bastion, the Police Interceptor version with the 5.7 liter V8 and all-wheel drive with a 8-speed automatic. Now, absolutely, we've used various versions with forced induction, superchargers in particular, and sport suspension, and sport tires. Mostly sport suspension components, alongside some additional power. And I believe we've also used ones with the 6.4 liter engine. So, yeah, I think I'll start. So, don't expect a lot of commentary at least uninitiated commentary. I might give comments on the differences on how they drive, but as this is literally the first time, it might be best if I focus on getting used to driving first. To note is kind of from the keyboard, the most obvious kind of difference is the ability to modulate all of the inputs instead of being a binary input, which is extremely great benefit in terms of, in terms of not just the realism, but primarily about the vehicle dynamics. As you could tell from previous sessions, driving requires a good grasp on smooth inputs and not necessarily slamming the inputs when you feel like it. So you must be able to modulate the throttle and put in the right amount of steering angle for the task at hand. Or else you might just overload the amount of grip the car would have, which would negatively impact the handling and thus the driving performance. So this is being able to modulate it. So previously, for example, like in the Bastion, for example, when you're doing the high-speed chase with keyboard, we were kind of mashing the steering. So what was happening, what was happening was, because we were literally turning so sharply, we overloaded the front tires instantly, which caused massive understeer, and this is made worse by the fact that not only is it all-wheel drive, which means it's already putting quite a bit of load on the front tires, it's also a modern kind of sedan, and a large sedan at that, with a big V8 engine. So this means that, the massive understeer is made even worse. And now, so this is at lower speeds, but being able to not have to do 100% lock when you want to. So there's two main things I've seen. So first of all, when you're trying to track straight down the road, right? So obviously, you're not always going to be perfectly straight, so you'd have to make constant corrections. Being able to do these very slight corrections in actual driving is a big blessing. So you don't have to be really clumsy with on and off inputs, which could upset the balance of the car, cause issues like fishnailing. And second of all, because we can dial in a kind of a less amount of steering when we're entering a corner. At least initially, we don't overload the tires that severely, which I believe helps in turning the car in the first place. But obviously, so we'll have to try this at a higher speed. So but at lower speeds, it feels really nice. And the other main notable thing is the transmission, or automatic transmission for that matter, because if you're doing on and off throttle at 100% all the time, um, the transmission's always going to assume you forward it. It's always going to be in its most aggressive mode, which isn't actually realistic nor particularly pleasing when you just want to be cruising around, for example, trying to find a target before starting a pursuit. And another thing to note is with the braking. So in real life, when you're braking, you're not really supposed to slam on the brakes, because that would lead to loss of control. And in modern cars, they would also activate the anti-lock system, which is something that really should only be happening in an emergency. So not having to slam on the brakes and having the ABS activate all the time is also very nice. So I think I should find a more windy road to try maybe get a feel of the steering, how it handles in very kind of the fluid back cornering. Oops! Oh, oops. Well, not good. I think the mountain road will work though. Yeah, I think this car is still very, very understeering. It's definitely much better than what it would have been with a keyboard. So yeah, so far if you're not driving like absolute monkey, this seems alright. Though obviously it's kind of hard to not drive like a monkey here, because the sensation of speed isn't quite as great as it would be in real life. Well, obviously any game is going to have that issue, but I think with just in a lot of games like this, I'm always tempted to try and go as fast as possible, just because it always feels okay doing so, because you just don't get that blurring sensation, or that sensation that you might put yourself in a massive amount of danger given the conditions at hand. So we're basically just treating this like a track, and also just because it's a game, you're just more inclined to do that anyways. As you can see, yeah, there's a lot of tire squeal from the front. And I think so. This Logitech video is using kind of a gear-based system, which I believe is causing a bit of a granular feeling. So it kind of feels like, so in BeamNG, it has a bit of this feeling that you're kind of grinding through a bunch of sand or some other something really hard. So it feels a little awkward, and the steering is feeling a little artificially heavy too. It doesn't feel particularly it doesn't feel particularly playful. It just feels like they just tacked on a lot of weight just to simulate the feeling of being sporty, but it doesn't really add much. Especially because there's this really dead spot in the center where like literally does nothing, which is, I guess, is to be expected, because in that type of car, I mean, you want the high speed stability, you don't want hyper responsive steering, or else you would spin out at when you sneeze at 150 miles an hour. But after you do that, it just push the force feedback, just like pushes back really harshly. It doesn't feel the nicest. It's not the most enjoyable to drive as a result. Now I suspect that because this is a bone stock setting, I think I would need to consult with one of my friends who has a better idea force feedback in the context of BeamNG. And maybe we can work out a session where we do some fine tuning. Also, one thing really nice, you can do J-turns much easier with a wheel. So just like go at a certain speed, lift off, transfer the weight, make the front tires lose grip while you spin. So yeah, so the reason I got this was we're planning like a end of the semester, oops, sorry. We were playing like a end of the semester BMP session with my friends. And I thought it would be nice if I was able to get a wheel because we've been wanting to do a session with a wheel for like over 2 years or something. So it would be really nice to finally be able to do it. And the thing is, when I got this wheel last year, I was thinking maybe I can mount on the table. But first of all, like table is actually too thick for both the Logitech and the shifter. So it doesn't have secure fit. And second of all, the pedals keep slipping, which is made even worse by the fact that the only chair I had was like wheeled office chair. So it's just not a secure base in the first place. So I determined that I would need to get a mount, and I thought all of the mounts were like actual rigs where like it's actual like an actual cockpit, a closed cockpit that you would need to really heavy and not particularly practical for like his apartment. But lately I went to the Micro Center and staff was there and they're like, you can buy one of these folding cockpits that have integrated seats. So yeah, so today I went ahead and bought one of those. Unfortunately, a lot of the sim stuff, they don't seem to go on sale very often. But I was able to use the first buyer discount, which actually gave out a higher discount than any of the other discounts that were available from either the manufacturer or other sites. So yeah, but I've had really good experience with the Micro Center staff. They were really helpful in trying to guide me, considering the constraints I have at the moment. So also note, we're not expecting this to be a long session. I got some assignments to do tomorrow, and I really have time to do this. This weekend because I did additional assignments. So I did a lot more than I had planned to do. So that's why we're having this session today. So, yeah, this thing doesn't like to be hustled at all. It's just a lot of protesting from the front tires, even at kind of a sedate speed. So alongside the G29, and so which has package of the wheel pedals. So pedals feel okay so far. One thing I noted in the sim setups I've tried, brake pedals seems to be really stiff. This doesn't necessarily match with my experience of driving like road cars. I always thought they were a little more, they had a little more give than that, but then again, it might be modeled after race cars. They might have like a higher pressure. But either way, it feels nice so far. The one that I've heard is in a lot of these pedal setups, your braking force is determined by pedal travel, and so not sure if it's like the most accurate. I'd have to check that out eventually. But yeah, but I do like the setup so far. Now, we're also probably not going to touch any manual transmission vehicles just because we have no experience with that. And I did a test run with a manual sometime, like right after I built the mound. It was an absolute disaster because, oh, not breaking hard enough. Kind of realized I keep slamming, I keep going to third, I keep slamming to fifth by accident, which, yeah, totally a minor issue, but yeah, I'm not feeling manual transmission at the moment. Maybe once I get some guidance from my friend, who's much better than me at manual transmission. I think it's also driven them in real life. So yeah, we'll have to see about that. So yeah, after this we can maybe up the pace a bit, maybe put it in sport mode. But yeah, the one thing I don't like about sim setups is there's never like an actual automatic shifter. There's only the H pattern shifter and the sequential shifter. It just doesn't seem right to me. It would be really interesting if there was like one model after the automatic shifter that we can kind of slide back and forth for automatic transmission vehicles in the game. Overloading. Just too sharp with input. I think. Yeah, we'll go full throttle, but we're gonna try not necessarily dive into this at the last minute. Oh yeah, this thing's not happy, especially at corner exits. Or maybe just not doing it correctly, so probably should straighten the thing out first, power out. You can tell I'm not getting much feedback from the front end. It's kind of really difficult to tell when the front end is about to lose grip. So not sure if that's like a wheel thing or like a car thing, but it's feeling a little disconcerting at corners. Brakes do seem to be alright, but then again I haven't completely pushed it, so we'll have to reserve that for later. The transmission is a little recalcitrant at times. It likes to kind of hunt up through the gears if I'm not, unless I'm like really pushing it at full throttle. Oh jeez, that was really sloppy. So yeah, I got once it's in maximum attack mode, it seems responsive, reasonably responsive, not giving me much issues. And the gear ratios are really nicely matched to the powertrain. sloppy there. Yeah, all of a sudden the steering lightens up a lot. So which could, I'm not sure if that's a contributing factor for this, but I'm not feeling much resistance. And this dead point where it's literally just freewheeling is still there. So the initial response is kind of worse. But I guess that's, as we said, purpose, the intention, right? This isn't necessary. This is more intended for. This is more oriented towards high-speed stability, so it's more understandable that would be like this. So after that, oh jeez, alright, that'll obviously, at least it's stable, because I suppose that's the trade-off. After this, we can try a modified version, which I normally wouldn't use in a given pursuit. But I expect that to have a much different character than the stock Interceptor. So now I wonder if a actual Dodge Charger would drive kind of somewhat aloof like this. Oh yeah, I also forgot, yeah, these things, I kind of forgot that they have an electronic speed limiter, likely because of the type of tires used. And I believe here at least most standard road tires are rated up to 130 miles an hour. So this sounds about right in the ballpark for me. Another contributing factor to the loss of grip is this tire thermal mod, which simulates both tire temperature and tire wear. And as you can tell, it is really punishing the front tires just due to this front heavy layout and all-wheel drive. And also just the sheer weight in general tends to be really hard on tires and brakes. So these are not things you can really tell from driving with a keyboard. So yeah, maybe later on we'll try a different game, like so of course competitions, and maybe we can try and see if it'll give a bit of a different driving impression. Okay. So now I kind of get the phrase when some car reviewers say it's like driving it in a video game. Now I kind of might be starting to understand what they're referring to. Or at least I feel like I understand that impression. Oh jeez, come on. Oh. Yeah, okay, we're going to pits for the we'll swap cars. So yeah, inspecting the sport tires to give a bit more initial turn and bite. But I'm not sure how what it'll give in terms of driving feel. One thing I also didn't realize, I wonder if in BeamNG there's parts for power steering. So I'm wondering if that's also a factor. Maybe I have to try that. But usually this feels way better. It doesn't feel quite as aloof. It feels way more secure in cornering. I can definitely I definitely have way much better initial turn and corner exit. This is all despite the additional like maybe 230 horsepower, something like that. Maybe close to 240, 250, but around that mark. Even with that additional power, it definitely feels quite a bit better to drive. I feel much more secure in this. Oh, way too hot in this corner. Chicane rather. I've already ordered this corner, first corner either. This is also a particularly notable brake zone too, so I have to be extra careful here. Too rough on the input. So yeah, one thing to note, there's definitely some flex, vertical flex in this mount, so I'm not sure if I'm properly secured. It isn't like affecting it tremendously, but it's definitely noticeable. As for pedals, not getting much issue with the pedals. There's also some slight flex in this shifter, at least when I tried it. So I'm wondering maybe some reinforcement on the bottom part of that steering wheel would work better. This is a pretty enjoyable car to drive. Understeer notwithstanding. Feels really secure enough at high speeds. Yeah, let's try to drive something that might be more designed for it, something lighter. We're probably still gonna stick with the rear wheel drive at the moment. Oh, it's a manual. I'm trying to swap the transmission. Wait a second. Shockingly, though, this thing has even lighter steering than the Bastion. Even the stock Bastion. Oh. Wasn't careful with the Bastion. Much sharper turning given it's more specialized. It has slick tires. It definitely feels much better compared to this when driven on a keyboard. I always recall this when driven on a keyboard always gave me a lot of issues with high-speed oversteer. I think being able to fine-tune the steering keys and throttle inputs have made this problem much better to deal with. Oh, not good enough. This is still pretty glitchy though. Definitely much better control manual mode. Oh. Yeah, not really knowing when about the limits of grip on the tires. Just there and then just loses grip all of a sudden. I just don't get much warning from that. see if can I change the steering on this thing. Maybe. Definitely more, definitely a little heavier. I think maybe the change ratios made it twitchier though. What's this there? I don't know. Well, alright. Oh, that didn't work out. Wow, okay, this thing's also very light. This could just be a game issue. second gear. It keeps trying to upshift. Oh! Alright, let's try another car that I always use in BMP races. The heavily modified Courier. This one's sequential. So yeah. Oh, there's a lot of twitch here. Really responsive. Really same time. It's not something that was noted in the keyboard. It's definitely a lot heavier steering, but still feeling unusually light. Now the steering weight just built up quite a bit at that speed corner. think this is a car that just wants to be chucked in, or at least when you chuck it in, it needs to go full throttle. Actually, yeah, we're also try the stock version, which has a smaller engine and no anti-lock. Actually, first we try this one. This thing's almost dangerous fighting itself. Use your high power front-wheel drive. Yeah, this thing drives much better than I had expected. Nope, except for that number steer. So the final thing we will try in this game is in auto beam cars. So in the BMP sessions, one of the best cars to drive with a keyboard is the Valheimer 820. Kind of wondering if this would also transfer to your wheel. This thing also feels pretty light. But the turn is very good. And it also feels, the handling seems very secure. It's really handle. It can really hang in the corners. And the thing about this is it has pretty good turn, and the best part is you'd be really steep in the corner and it'll still somehow hang on. And it'll help you straighten out from that situation too. So very tossable, yet it's quite secure at the same time. So this is why, for me, this is the best auto beam expert car I've ever driven. It sounds like it's also going to apply here. So this thing has a 277 horsepower, 2-liter 4-cylinder, 8-speed automatic with all-wheel drive, and this is the sports version, so it has upgraded suspension, tires, brakes, and the like. So, I just trucked the thing. Oh, never mind. Wow, that was really bad. So yeah, regardless of that, I think this is the car I would always recommend to like beginners or someone who just wants something really nice and easy to drive with good handling. It's just that forgiving at movements. Oh, man, not good. Why did I do that? Anyways, I think the last thing we'll do here, at least in Beam, is let's try to see if we can finish a lap of the Nurburgring. I've definitely done this with keyboard with the Valheimer. Okay, that was a weird loss of rear grip here. Must have not been careful enough. Oh, shit. The brakes are already fading. It's a little concerning. We're ignoring that off-track excursion. on, get in the carousel. That's literally no feeling here. It's very disconcerting. Jesus, just losing grip left and right like this. No! Well, so I think the last thing to do here, so I won't be doing any more commentary, but I'm gonna try to see if I can set a time on the Nürburgring. A rolling start? I think I should do a rolling start. And I'll do one lap in the afternoon. Sounds about right. I think. think this was the VFC for a theoretical event I was planning for the server. All right. Yeah. So yeah, probably stop commentary then because I'm trying to focus here. But you're welcome to chime in at any time. All right, at least we got a time, but I kind of feel like could have pushed a little harder. Because so some made notable things. Turn-in is pretty good. Uh, it has pretty good agility for what the kind of car it is, and the all-wheel drive. So we turn in the corner, it has that good turn-in property, and then so the front turns in, and the rear is able to stick along with it. So the rear also has good, generally has good grip. And then when you want to power up the corner, you can use the all-wheel drive system to initiate a bit of power to steer and then straighten out to kind of maximize speed out of the corner. But one of the issues is at the limit, the rear tends to be pretty spiky. So normally, yes, as I said earlier, the rear has good grip and it's very cooperative until you go past the grip threshold, and all of a sudden you lose everything. So you see the kind of the S's in the earlier section. That's kind of the issue where the rear was upset enough to kind of start swinging out, and then I was not able to recover from that. So yeah, receive, we can get a few more laps in, and then we will likely call it. Yeah, I think we're gonna call it. It's getting pretty late. So yeah. Um, I, thank you to everyone who came here, and I hope you enjoyed it. So searching for the right target. I think maybe someone new, but also happens to be celebrating fourth anniversary. So let me type it in. Uh, I think this is the right spelling. Is it? Yeah, sounds about right. Let me pull it up. Be an awkward time to do this. I think we'll be okay. Yeah, okay, we're in the right in the middle of some ad break, but yeah. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this session, and I'll see you next time.